Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, or if you're listening to a recording of this Fireside Chat. Eimear Burke here. This is our 114th Fireside Chat, brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovate and Druids. So as I usually do, I will start with a prayer for peace. Gomara Siacon a fud na crinne. Gomara Siacon in our Jaili agus in our Jirha. Ganairi Lin, Lenarcuj Garmacha, Galmich Buichastiv, Je Chuvdaka, is Spirit Chuvdaka. May peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail in our homes and in our countries. May our missions be accomplished. We thank you, guardian spirits and guardian deities. For peace. As the fever of day calms towards twilight, may all that is strained in us come to ease. We pray for all who suffered violence today. May an unexpected serenity surprise them. For those who risk their lives each day for peace, may their hearts glimpse providence at the heart of history. That those who make riches from violence and war might hear in their dreams the cries of the lost. That we might see through our fear of each other a new vision to heal our fatal attraction to aggression. That those who enjoy the privilege of peace might not forget their tormented brothers and sisters. That the wolf might lie down with the lamb, that our swords be beaten into plowshares, and no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the Holy Mountain, with thanks to John O'Donoghue. So let's see where you're all from. There's deepest, darkest Elmer's End. That's a great place. It sounds such a magical place. Penzance, West Cornwall. Smoky Kamloops, Glastonbury, Wiltshire, Wyoming, Italy, New Orleans, where's everybody from? Just lovely to sunny London. And actually, well, it's cloudy now, but it was sunny today, thank goodness. Portugal, Finland, Forest Row, I don't know where that is. Wisconsin, nearly sunny Slough, that's lovely. London. Anyway, lovely to see you all. Ebden Bridge, I don't know where Ebden Bridge is. Hertfordshire. Oh, Paul says it's the UK. Great. Anyway, lovely to see you all. And the north of Spain, lovely. Alaska, that's far away. South London, New Jersey, West Yorkshire, Huddersfield. Great to see you all and great to be back. I wasn't here last week. I was on a family holiday with my two children. So that was a really enjoyable time. My first time away with them in 10 years. So really, really nice to be there with them. So, sorry, it's Sussex, near Lewis. That's near Philip's place and Stephanie's, the Netherlands. Lovely to see you all. Anyway, this evening, we are going to the US, and I'd like to welcome my guest this evening, Jenna Polden. Jenna, you're so welcome.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to hear everybody coming from all over. I have roots in Wisconsin. I have a cousin in Alaska and Finland. My ancestry is from Finland. So I caught all those names and so happy to be here. Really. Thank you, Eimear.
So, I mean, we have, there's a broad sweep in terms of our viewers, from all continents. It's wonderful that we have such a far stretch. So you are so welcome, Jenna. Now, tell us where you are. Where are you now? And tell us a little bit about your background.
I'm located right now and have been for 40 years in the mountains of northern New Mexico. I'm about 20 miles from the Colorado border. So it's not cactus and desert, it's mountains. And I live near a town that maybe some of you have heard of called Taos, New Mexico, a famous artist colony, ancient pueblo that's a World Heritage Site. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of a beautiful meld of the three cultures. The artists came in the early 1900s, but the hippies came in the late 50s and early 60s. And so those Anglo cultures, we call them Anglos. Even if you're Black, you're an Anglo here. And melded with the original Pueblo culture and then the Hispanic culture, which has been here for 500 years. I mean, they even speak a certain dialect of Spanish that is ancient Spanish, that from Spain 500 years ago. Yeah, it's really cool. And of course, everybody speaks Spanglish. You know, yeah, was this and then blah 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 mattress, and you'll hear these words. It's great. So I've been here 40 years. I raised 3 children here. Met my first husband, my late husband, who passed away here, and it really rooted me.
Mhm.
I was a little fairy child. I was born though in the Midwest in Cincinnati, Ohio, and my ancestral roots, my Finnish roots, and my mom's side of the family is from Wisconsin,
Okay.
and um, my dad's side of the family was from Cincinnati, but oddly enough, they did separate when I was young, and my dad went to Wisconsin and my mom stayed in Cincinnati because they got their university professors, they got teaching jobs in they switched states, which worked fine. So I spent my childhood between the farm in Wisconsin, which was my happy place, and got a good education in the city and grew up in Cincinnati. And I left at age 17 to go to college. I went to a small college out west in the cornfields of Iowa.
Hmm.
It's called Grinnell College. It's actually one of the top liberal arts colleges in this country, but it's not as well known. People would say, "Oh, you went to Cornell?" No, that's in New
I
York.
know.
My dad taught there, but I didn't go there. Anyway, but Grinnell is wonderful, wonderful community, very deep place. I got a degree in theater and also literature. I always studied literature and I always took uh, art classes like drawing and printmaking. I was an artist from a very young age, and but got into theater in high school. I think a lot of people probably did. Um, and I was always a singer, and I loved. I think my happy places were on the farm, out in the
Okay.
country. I had a little pony who was a Welsh pony.
Okay.
When I was 10, my daddy got me a pony, and my grandparents' garden was also just a sacred place for me. The raspberries and the tomatoes and ah. So I think that's a bit. Oh, and then when I graduated from, I went to India during my university training, and that was mind-boggling and amazing for a girl who grew up in a 11-room Victorian house to go and live with a family in 2 small rooms.
Yeah.
They had 2 children and the grandmother and me and the mom and dad. And, you know, we'd roll out the mattress on the living room floor where we slept. And it was just so good for me to see that and to open to that culture. I learned Kathak dance and tabla and really kind of opened up a whole piece of my soul memory that, you know, that's why I went, I think. But it
Mhm.
was really good. And then when I came back, I just wanted to keep going west. My mom and I had, I'm an only child. My mom and I are very close, and my dad and I too, but he passed away in 97. So
Okay.
it's, and I helped him with his passage. That's another story.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's it. We used to come out west to Naropa Institute in Boulder, Colorado, and study different things. And then when I graduated, I came out west and have been out here ever since, pretty much.
And I've already had 2 guests from Taos, New Mexico,
Yeah,
Billy Stewart and Malaya. Isn't she from Taos as
they're
well?
both friends of mine.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely chats with them. So yeah, and I mean, I looked up that Pueblo. What would you say? City, town. That
Taos Pueblo. It's a pueblo, which means the people, I think, but it's, yeah, it's mud houses. Yeah.
fascinating architecture, just
Mhm,
beautiful,
mhm.
just so earthy. So someday I'll get there. Someday.
It's a sacred place. It really is. And the first time I came here was for the Feast of the Harvest, the San Geronimo Day feast. And
Tell us a little bit about that.
it's written in a book called The Man Who Killed the Deer by Frank Waters, who I actually met and lived up the road from for many years too. But it's a harvest festival and a trade fair. So Taos is the northernmost pueblo along the Rio Grande River. And then up in the mountains in Colorado, there are the Utes and the Arapaho and a bunch of other tribes. And sometimes they were all fighting, but not at the trade fair. They would come down from the mountains, come up from the pueblos, and have a big party, celebrate the harvest, and trade and sell stuff. So it's still that. But one of the most significant, cool things about it is they go up into the mountains and get a huge, I'm talking big tree, a big, big, big pole. I mean, I don't know how high it is, but it's very high. And then at the top, there's one little cross piece. And from the cross piece are hung, usually it used to be maybe a deer. I think last time I went, it was a sheep.
Ooh, okay.
Food, and then watermelons and harvested things. And the heyoka, the clowns, at a certain point, they close down all the booths and the clowns come out. I mean, it's an amazing festival. And they have these teeny little bows and little straw arrows. So they're kind of useless in a way, but they're tracking. They're tracking the animal that's on top of the pole, okay? And they do it with a lot of humor and funny. And they get to the base of the pole, and then they go, it's up there. And then they have to think, how are we going to get up there, right? So there's a rope. I mean, the thing must be 30 feet up in the air. It's very, very tall. And one guy, the most athletic of them all, who hopefully has practiced this, but he uses the rope and his feet and climbs up to the top. And oh my goodness. And one year, the clown, the guy who did it, he didn't just sit on that cross piece and release the food down on the rope. He stood on the very top of this pole, which the circumference couldn't have been much more than, 1.5 feet maybe. And he raised his arms like right up. And of course, at that moment, there's an eagle flying overhead, right? Just chills. And everybody in this big circle around is just, holding him up there safely. And then they let the harvest down and celebrate. That's kind of the main essence of this particular San Geronimo Day festival. And then there's dancing where they invite anyone to join. I forget what they call them. There's a certain kind of dance. They're not a ritual dance, but it's a community dance. And
it just strikes me, and I think Hannah says, strange how people always unify for certain things. You're going back in time. I assume they're not fighting now, but that ability, you have a traditional enmity between different peoples or among different peoples, and then you recognize that nobody benefits if that is there all the time. So a ceasefire for, I mean, not biting your nose pulling off your nose to spite your face, but that you recognize actually these people, we need them. We all do need it. Maybe sometimes people need something to hate, but that to trade and how sensible that is. And then of course, combine it with the celebration as well. Absolutely. And then I suppose pick up their bows and arrows afters or whatever they had at the time, and hatchets or axes, or if they were lucky with guns, and then pick them up on the way out, and then just say, okay, as of next Monday, we're back enemies again until next year. And if people can do that, we're all capable of doing that, making more peace actually than
We are. And it really isn't this survival of the fittest thing. I think Philip talked about that recently, but it's something I've known for a while. This is not really how we work.
yes, we
We
survive
all
through
are
cooperation.
cooperating. Yeah. And that's understood, I think. And you got to share what you've got, bring it together, have the time of celebration. And I
Even
mean, I don't,
sperm, even
pardon?
sperm, even sperm, when they're heading for the egg, it's not a race. The sperm cooperate to help the strongest get there. They've
Oh,
witnessed that on film. So it's not the fastest guy.
that is so powerful, which actually brings us right to something that really interests me of late. Um, is what we're all in the midst of, is this huge shift from a paradigm of domination
Yeah.
into the paradigm of partnership.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are terms that Rianne Eisler uses. She wrote The Chalice and the Blade years ago, and I've been reading her book called Sacred Pleasure, which is just looking at how sexuality and love has been so corrupted
Yeah.
in terms of we could call it the patriarchy, but it's really the domination culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we are making that shift now. I really, it's time. It's the shift of the ages. We're at this cusp, and it's chaotic. But
What's her name again?
Rianne, Riane, I believe, Eisler, Eisler. I mean, she was writing long ago.
Okay, I knew the chalice. This
Yep.
latest one is on love and sexuality.
Sacred Pleasure
Okay.
and it's fat. It's really big, and it's not a Kama Sutra. It's a sociology book, basically. But it's the title is very inviting, and I mean, she was basically talking about these early cultures that we're celebrating the earth and the mother. And in Turkey, right, in Katal Huyak, there's a great an archaeologist named Maria Gimbutas who's
Yes.
done a lot
Yes.
of research on that,
Yeah.
right? And they didn't find weapons. There was a lot of art,
Yeah.
and it wasn't as if the women oppressed the men in those cultures. It was just the great mother was this bountiful mother that was loved and worshiped. And I do believe with our Druidry path, and also in the shift of the ages, we've got to get back to that. And
Yeah.
that's, yeah. And with our own we don't have to go all the way back. We can bring what we've learned forward. Other people talk about it in terms of that right brain, left brain switch, which we are learning to balance.
Yeah, it's Claire says, I hope we're making that shift. My feeling is it's still a long way off. And then Kayla says, our family discovered nonviolent communication around the time the pandemic started. It's about acknowledging everyone's feelings and needs and working together to find ways to get the needs met, connection, collaboration instead of power over.
Well done. Yeah.
And Liz says, always the most wonderful talks and guests. She's talking about you're one of those. And incredible insightful comments. Love it.
Thank you.
And Lisa says, it's support of the great mother that's the saving grace.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I think it's about an awful lot of conflict is about fear.
Yeah.
We're not being heard. And
yeah. And the deep wounding that from not being heard, from not being bonded with, perhaps as a child, for all those things, and then it becomes externalized, and blaming, pushing. My husband always says, if you're pointing at somebody, you've got three fingers pointing back at yourself. So
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But we see that with the wounding in the world. And I just loved your prayer for peace. I've heard it before, but
John O'Donoghue.
Yeah.
I think I mean I read it every time simply because it includes everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those who are hurtful or are hurting, those who are hurted. I mean, hurting as not hurting others, but they are hurting.
You're right.
Those who have peace. It's like for all of us, either we're perpetrating it, we're making money from it, or we have peace, or we're suffering from violence, that it includes all of us.
It does. It does. And it really truly begins within our own selves and ripples out. And I really feel I'm not a news watcher. I haven't done that for years. I keep tabs on things and I pray for for things. We sit down at dinner and we say, when those who do not have a good meal, may they be blessed with a good meal. And those who don't have a peaceful home, may they be blessed with that. And all, because somehow holding that frequency makes a difference. And we really have to keep that attitude, because it's like lighting a tiny candle in the dark, but it makes a difference. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So, what we're doing, we're going all around the houses, tipping into things that hopefully we'll go back to. What is it that, actually, sorry, just Claire, this is related. If the Hindus are on target, we are in the Kali Yuga still, which is the age of chaos and destruction. That we have to work through.
We're almost out of it, actually. We're tipping. It's according to the precession of the equinoxes, we really are in this chaotic evolutionary shift point out of the Kali Yuga. But yeah, we have to look at our wounds. We have to look at the trauma. We have to really do that work in order to be able to move into something else.
And also it's looking at that within ourselves, not just
that's what I mean. Yeah, it starts here. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm sorry, there's a fruit fly. That means summer is coming. What brought you to Druidry, or how did you find Druidry? How did you find the order? So what was your spiritual background before you joined us?
Spiritual background before, I've always been a mystic, always been happiest in nature. My parents didn't force any religion on me, which is interesting. I had lots and lots. It was pretty intellectual household, but artistic, and I had lots and lots of friends who went to different churches and synagogue, and we had friends who were Jewish, and we'd celebrate Passover with them, with music and food. And I went to the Baptist church. Spent a lot of time at an Episcopal church and the Catholic church, because inside I was always hungry for that divine and hungry for the connection. And so honestly, I don't know if any of you know this novelist. She's pretty old fashioned, but I discovered her in my teens. Her name's Elizabeth Googe. She was born in Wells, actually, in the UK.
She's Glastonbury.
Yeah. Her father was an Anglican dean or something, but she is a nature mystic, and she writes of children and animals and human relations so beautifully. I think her biggest book that got popular was called the Dolphin. No. Green Dolphin Street. It's called Green Dolphin Street. Anyway, she's mystic and spiritual. So I was always, open, never dogmatized, thank goodness, and open. And I followed many, many mystical paths. But when it's rather interesting, Eimear, that we had to reschedule this talk.
Yeah.
Because today happens to be the day, I'm not a big astrologer, but I do follow the planets, when Jupiter is moving into Taurus. Okay. So we are expanding our love of the earth, our love of the fruits of the earth and the gardening and our tinctures and all these things. And 12 years ago, Jupiter also went into Taurus. It spends about 1 year in each sign. So now it has come back around to Taurus. And I'm thinking, what was I doing in May of 2011? And I went, that's when I signed up for my Bardic course. That's when I found Obod. Expanding my love of earth, finding a container that really resonated at that time. It was such an important time in my life for expanding so many things. I had been in a brief, I can't call it a mistaken marriage. It was a karmic learning marriage that I jumped into 3 years after I was widowed. And it had a purpose. And at that time, May of 2011, it was not serving my soul evolution. And it wasn't really serving either of us in a sovereign way.
Mhm.
But it was very painful. I was older than my husband at the time, and that was the reason he used to say, no, you're not. And I said, but you knew how old I was when you
Yeah.
met. But again, you can't change that. You can't get into a little codependent pretzel shape and try and make it all better. And that
Mm.
was really good for me. And so I discovered Druidry. I'm like,
Ah.
it's almost like I woke up one day and I said, oh, I'm a druid. And so I go on an online search and I
Oh,
found it.
so you decided you were a druid first, then you found the order. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know where it just dropped in, right? And I found the order and I really liked everything and listened to stuff. And I'm like, this is my path now. I'm going to order the course. Took me about 12 years to really complete it, but
Take your time.
yeah.
So why OBOD and not a US-based order?
I don't know. I think this is probably one of my first lifetimes in the US anyway, but
Okay.
I I don't know. Again, it was just a resonance.
Okay.
Yep. And they were my people. It just felt right. And I mean, Jupiter will also in Taurus. Taurus is about the riches of the earth too, and money and resources. So hopefully our resources, if we're being really aligned on our path and stuff, will be expanded in this time because it just went into Taurus today. And so a friend of mine, gifted me a large sum of money out of the blue. Well, it wasn't so out of the blue, long story, but she had lots of money that she had just inherited and she gifted me money. So I planned this outrageous pilgrimage to the UK and went to my first OBOD camp, signed my daughter and me up for in the Vale of the White Horse. And that's where I met Philip and Stephanie and lots of OBODies. And that's in my new book, that whole pilgrimage. It's fun. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So
I've never been to an OBOD camp.
well, it was a lot of fun 12 years ago.
I know. Yes. Yeah. Okay, that's wonderful. Yes. So, and you're in a grove, is it? I mean, because you hosted the
Spring equinox.
spring equinox
Yes, you have many
online.
things on in your
A
mind.
few, and the names. So, what's the name of your grove again?
Well, actually, this is odd. I'm not an official member of the Red Willow Seed Group
Okay.
where Billy and Malia are. I met them. I've known Billy through music for quite a while, and I met Malia through our spring equinox celebration, and we've
Okay.
since met for tea and really have a lot of resonance between us.
Lovely.
But that's not the grove that I had been active in. I'm kind of a renegade, sorry, but I just have been running these ceremonies with people in my circle of friends for, 12 years almost, because I've got a lot of training in theater, in ritual, because it just felt a fit for me. And it's been so deep. And so we have a small group. My band is a couple who's neighbors of ours, and then another man who plays bass. My husband's the drummer, I'm the singer. And pandemic, it shrank down to just pretty much the four of us and sometimes one other friend who is a Sufi, but really loves this path as well. And yeah, so we're just kind of doing it. I would say if we did have a grove, we would call it the Green Oaks Grove because that's the name of our band. And
Lovely. So
yeah,
you hold ceremonies to mark the Wheel of the Year with an eclectic group of people.
I do.
Yes,
Mhm.
I do as well.
Okay. Well, good. Then I'm okay. It's okay to be a renegade.
No. Sorry, you're not a renegade. Boring. Because I didn't know when I started. I didn't know any O'Buddies. So it was myself, my husband, and one other person, and then it grew. And it was never. Again, that freedom within the order. You express your druidry,
Hmm.
whatever way
Yeah.
you see fit. So I mark the Wheel of the Year. Now we have more and more OBOD members come. But it's not, I don't have a list of members. It doesn't work that way. It's very, very informal.
Yeah.
So, but it works really, really well. All sorts of people come. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned now, okay, now I don't know which to go next. You're a singer. Okay, okay, and you love nature. So we were just talking before we came on. You were in the garden earlier. What were you doing?
Oh my goodness. Well, I was weeding, and I was weeding crabgrass.
What's
And
crabgrass?
crabgrass is grass with very big, deep roots. And I had neglected my garden, my flower garden,
Mm-hmm.
a bit last summer. My husband and I finally got married after 10 years together, and we got married last Beltane in 2022. And so we went on a honeymoon for 5 weeks to the UK and kind of marketed my book a little, but then we went walking around the island of Anglesey, around Inesmont.
Oh, lovely.
We
Yeah.
went to the Llyn Peninsula as well and climbed a hill in Snowdonia and lots of stuff. So I neglected it for a year. So I'm replanting a couple of delphiniums and weeding and loving it back to its former glory. That's what I was doing yesterday. We're also planting the veggie garden. And that's, I usually garden with input from nature intelligence, which if anyone's heard of Findhorn,
Mm-hmm.
that the beginnings of Findhorn began with the garden. And it's such a wonderful story that here they were. Peter was guided to quit his cushy job at the hotel, and they went to live in this little cold caravan park. And his wife was getting downloads from the divine, and she'd have to they were raising kids. So she'd go into the freezing latrine at the caravan park and just write because she was getting these downloads. And her guidance came through and Peter was told to make a garden, right? In the sand. I mean, the whole story is just outrageous.
Impossible. Okay, go on.
I read about it probably in the 80s. I had a book called The Magic of Findhorn.
Okay.
Written by people from the community, and Paul Hawken was someone who was involved with that in the late 70s, early 80s. And that's what lighted me up about Findhorn. And then in 88, I think, my dear girlfriend gave me a book called The Paralandra Garden Workbook, which is written by an American woman in Virginia named Michelle Small Wright. And she was inspired by Findhorn, but she did her own research. So she taught in the book this kind of muscle test with, breaking your connection here is a no, and holding it is a yes. I've been doing it for over 30 years. And that's how you speak with nature intelligence. You have to ask yes or no questions.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, so what I've been doing in the last week or so is planning the garden with the Deva. The Deva is like an architect who will tell you how many feet of carrots and what variety and how many feet of this and what to include, and does it need crystals or other flowers or herbs. And so we have it planned, and then you get the spring planting rhythm, which is also kind of this. The whole thing is like a little orchestra, building slowly. until summer solstice, we have sort of the first chord, the first resonant full chord of the garden. So we're doing that. And this year we had to redo everything because there's these little critters that live here called pocket gophers, and they burrow under the ground and I've watched them do this, Eimear. They certain plants, I've watched them pull my entire peach leaf bellflower down into
Oh
the,
my God.
I know.
Like science fiction.
Yeah. And they breached the veggie garden 2 years ago. So we didn't garden last year, and now we are making these amazing beds, frame raised beds
Raised beds.
with
Okay.
powerful wire lath underneath that they
Oh, so
can't.
they're not going to get up. Okay.
Anyway, so lots of gardening and planting and mucking around in the soil. I love it.
It's I love weeding. I find that really therapeutic because I'm clearing loads of stuff. I mean, in here, as I'm
I know.
clearing the earth or the flower bed or whatever it is, I'm getting rid of loads of other stuff from myself energetically, and it's
Agree.
wonderful. But I have a tunnel, and I'm not going to be able to. I travel so much, that I'm not able to mind it. It went crazy on me last summer, and
Yeah.
my friend who was an organic farmer just retired from it, and she used to give me her seedlings. So
Ooh.
anyway, but today I was harvesting hawthorn.
Ah,
So the hawthorn is just my whole garden. It's interesting. It's not last year. I didn't have many flowers. I have lots of hawthorn trees in the garden, but it's just been an explosion of white. So harvested to make a tincture, and then I was processing my other herbs, so not bottling them. So stuff that I had already that had been there. So I'm ready now to when they become ripe to make more tinctures and gather more herbs and dry them. So that I enjoy. I have to say I'm too much of a wild gardener that I'm not disciplined enough. I can plant them and then, oh, that's a nice weed. I like that flower. I don't want to take that up. Yet it's a greedy flower, and I turn my back, and then it goes and takes
yeah.
over from whatever plant is there.
Yeah.
So I'm not great. And then when I am planting or weeding, I have to say, now make room for your plant brothers and sisters. But
Yeah.
I'm not disciplined enough. Julia says my gardening seems to be more pulling up and hacking down than planting and nurturing. I think you've this. You wrote that before I said what I was saying. Well done, Julia.
Well done. It sort of depends on where you live, I think, too. In New Mexico, there's weeding for sure, but there's also a lot of nurturing, watering, building up, slightly drier. But I always feel with the weeds, especially the ones I love who are healing plants, I'm just
Medicines.
like,
Yeah.
okay, dandelion, if I'm going to take you out of the flower garden, I'm not going to get all of you. You're just going to come back up again, and I honor you for your power,
We can eat them, there's some
Exactly.
oh,
Mhm.
John is up in Ardnamurchan. I mean, our garden is a wood. It looks after itself.
Ah, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I'm more of a herbs person. Okay, and then Druid of LA says my gardening is not my gardening. I tend to let the plants decide. And then Julie says, I have a plaque which reads the weeds are winning. I know that one. I don't have a plaque, but I don't need a plaque there. It's just so obvious. I have a labyrinth, and that's the only thing that gets mown.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do. It's an arc. So my friend Sean O'Green is a member of the order. He's the head gardener of Glenveigh National Park in Donegal. He's been a guest.
Mm.
So he was down recently, and he said, "Oh, it's just lovely." He said, "Just thin it out a little bit in June." But he said, I know I have an arc. It's very, very wild."
Wow. Well, I mean, that's one thing though about gardening with nature intelligence. You're uh, they know. They know what they need for a balance, and they can respect one's desire for certain plants, but there's a lovely balance, and you're actually creating they describe it in terms of sound. You're creating a note that's struck and has an effect in the larger world, but you're not Again, it comes back to domination or cooperation
Yeah.
and partnership. So it's lovely to work in partnership with them and say, okay, I want this little patch to have the flowers, not the grass.
Right,
And
that's
it
right.
cooperates. Yeah.
And you see, I've cow parsley everywhere, but you see, and
Mm,
then the flowers I have is like, no, they're for the bees, but
yeah.
then something else isn't growing, but it's like, okay, do I like the bees? Anyway,
Oh, the
so
bees.
yeah,
Always the bees.
yeah, yeah.
Pick the bees. Well, and
Well,
I have a question for you about hawthorn because to me
yes.
it's such a sacred plant. I think if you've read my book, you know that I talk about it in the book. And I've certainly experienced it in Avalon in the spring. Um, Now, I've recently heard that the fairies in the hawthorn roots that you don't want to disturb a hawthorn tree. Do you
Well,
know?
um, so in Ireland, I have loads of hawthorns, okay, but none of them is a special fairy tree because they're not solitary. So if you find that's not to mean they're not special. I mean, I know there's all sorts of creatures resident in the garden. I have been able to trim things. I have permission to do it.
Mhm.
If you meet a skeach, so skeach gyal is the Irish
Ah,
for a hawthorn. If you meet a
yeah.
solitary one in a ploughed field, you know that is known everywhere that is a portal into the other world, and you
Okay.
do not touch it.
Okay.
Then you'll meet them at wells. You know, they might have
Mhm.
ribbons and clooties on them.
Mhm.
Uh, I mean, when I came here, my garden is full. I have no more room for trees.
Mm.
It was a field. So hawthorns have come themselves.
Wow. Yeah.
They were there on one fence, but not anywhere else. So they've popped up in my flower beds or whatever. So I've allowed them. So
Yeah, I would.
I think it's okay then to trim them back. I remember one was falling into a little cottage I have, so I had to go and talk.
Yeah.
I wanted to put this cottage here, and it was the only place. So I spoke to the tree, and it says you can take one big branch off,
Mhm. Mhm.
which I did.
Yeah.
And then sometimes then it was falling, so I have to pull it back a bit and say, "Listen,
Yeah.
you're falling over." But so because I'm very laissez-faire, that I can actually do a little bit of trimming, like clipping toenails or doing a little haircut.
Yeah. Because that's what you're doing. You're not killing it. You're trimming
No.
its hair. But it's nice to ask always.
But the thing about hawthorn, I'm not recommending people do it, that if you do cut down a hawthorn, it'll regenerate.
Huh. Yeah.
A bit like, so Julie says, I have a self-seeded hawthorn in my suburban front garden.
Hmm.
After about 5 years, this is the first year it blossomed. Yes, it takes its time. Um, it's that's lovely, Julia. Absolutely. Liz says, interesting distinction about hawthorn versus fairy trees. Lots of hawthorn around here. But that is the belief that it's a solitary
Mm.
tree, because every hawthorn tree can't be a portal. It's like you can't have all those doors.
Yeah.
Certainly when I have loads of them, it's like, well,
Yeah.
a lot of drafts come in. It's not
Yeah.
good fairy architecture to have doors to everything. There have to be
Yeah.
special doors. And Liz says, my neighbor cleared their hawthorn hedge out last year. I wonder about that. So,
Mm.
so it's sometimes we need to, I have in one place I have a magnolia tree, and then there were 3 horse chestnuts overgrowing, and it's like they're not going to survive. So I had to take out because they shouldn't be there. I know
Mhm.
somebody had thrown conkers there that seeded.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Pauline says, I planted 3 different hawthorns in memory of my late husband. Love to see the flowers on them just now. She
Oh,
said 3 different. Are you talking about, because mine are, I have hawthorn trees. I don't know, they've come. Some have more pink.
oh,
You can get some deep pink, but I think they're maybe a garden variety that have gone
right.
wild. And then you have some with a faint little pink, and then there's the creamy white. And some of the flowers are richer. They're almost like
Hmm.
big fat flowers, or they
Mhm.
look like they're like pregnant flowers on a branch, and others not so.
Mhm.
So, and the countryside is just cover them anywhere along the road. You'll see
Yeah.
all the hedgerows have them.
Yeah.
Just beautiful, just
So
magical.
beautiful. This is our the wild plum. This is as close as we get in
This is
New
your white
Mexico.
flower or your purple one?
The white.
Oh, beautiful,
So
beautiful.
is a wild plum. And so these are the ones we use at Beltane, and because we don't, the hawthorns don't grow wild here. They would have to be planted and cultivated. They might make it, but the wild plum is our New Mexican
Brilliant. This is beautiful.
flower for this time. Yeah.
Lovely. So Pauline says they're one of each, white, pale pink, and dark pink. Beautiful.
Oh, nice.
Christopher Hughes is here. Hi, Christopher.
Chris!
Yeah, I will control yourself. I am sure I say this every year, but this year the hawthorn flowers are absolutely incredible, breathtaking. Well, I'm saying that this year, Christopher, because it wasn't the case in my garden last year. So I didn't know if you said, don't know if you said it last year.
Oh, I remember the year I was in Glastonbury for Beltane. It was 2019, I think, or 18. But they were rich and absolutely gorgeous. Wonderful. Christopher, I hope you got my book that Dave and Carrie brought you last summer. We'll see.
He may answer. Brilliant.
He may or may not. That's fine. Although I do, when we talk about it, I do have a wonderful story that I will tell about.
Okay. Oh, yes. Thank you, he says. Yes, he did.
Good.
So I think this is a good time to talk about your book.
Yeah. All right.
So give people the title, because I have read it.
The title of my book is called The Alchemy of Avalon.
Oh my God, what have I done? Sorry about that. I removed you. I did not. Apologies. I was I had my cursor in the wrong place. Okay.
No problem. And I'm thinking it's starting to get cloudy. It might rain. Am I still lit up enough for everyone? Am I good? All right.
Well, you are for me.
The Alchemy of Avalon. It's it's a historical novel, which is funny because when I started writing it, I didn't know that it was going to intersect with this particular intense time in history when the Romans invaded in Esmond. So, but it is. That's when it takes place. And it just started to download the pandemic spring. My teaching job, I'm a Steiner teacher, a Waldorf teacher, and have been for many, many years. And I was just doing a little group of young children teaching music and movement with two groups of young children. And you cannot do that on a computer. It's just, you need to be present with these kids and you need to move and touch and hold. And so that just kind of shut down, and it was okay for me. In fact, it was an amazing, talk about a fairy portal. It was a great portal for something new to be born. And the book just started pouring in and crying out to be written. And I would do little things like pull a card from the Druid Animal Oracle or the Druid Plant Oracle. And just to kind of get the juice going. But after a certain point, it was like a big boulder rolling down a hill. It was unstoppable. And it just came through. It's a love story. It's kind of a soul memory of my own, and a historical novel. And it's also, that was the time when I finally finished my Bardic course, where I finally started to dive in and just do the work, and because I had the time. And so it was so deeply and richly informed by that as well. And it's actually my my Bardic graduation piece is how I see it. So
in terms of your historical research, how much did you do and where did you go? Or did you do any?
I didn't read a lot of books, but I just looked up a lot of the Roman stuff. I mean, the story is just so amazing because of the way, and I won't do a spoiler, but there's a certain way in which Queen Boudica interfaces this story. And that's true. Everything that one writes about, I think, that seems so fantastical and so crazy, those are the true things.
Okay.
You know, it's amazing. And, okay, so here's the story. I was also inspired greatly and influenced, I think, by a Walking the Talk, a podcast that Dave the Bard did with Christopher Hughes. And I think it was in the autumn, if I have it correctly, they were, I think it was one of their first trips they'd been able to make after the lockdown or something. And they went up to Ines Mon and did a little walking the talk on Anglesey. I must have listened to that, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 times because it just sparked so much inspiration in me. Chris took them to Bryn Celli, which is the mound, which in my book is not the mound in the dark wood, which is what that means. It's called the place of golden light because when the sun rises on the summer solstice, it cuts through into the back of that, and the rock has sort of a bit of goldenish mica reflective quality. So that's just the name that came to me because Chris had said that was not the ancient name of this mound, Bryn Celli. So anyway, they went there, and then they went to Llyn Cerrig Bach, this little lake where they absolutely know that the ancestors had made offerings because they were found during World War II. And I think it's Druid Cast 164, if anyone's interested. Really worth hearing. But I wrote about that too. In fact, my people in my story were making those last offerings. There were no offerings found, apparently, that were dated much later than 60, 61. And that was the date of the invasion,
Wow.
So, I mean, it was just deeply inspiring, really, really beautiful. And I had to do this writing without going to Ines Mon. We had been to Snowdonia in 2019 and looked across the strait and said, oh, we got to walk that. Let's walk around that island next time. And then we didn't do it until last September in 2022. But we did last year.
Wow.
And I think I was hoping I could maybe meet up with Chris, but I think he was running his Caribbean thing in Lake Bala. But anyway, it was just so beautiful to actually go to the places that I'd written about on this island, on Ines Mon. And I was using Google Earth, and I was really trying to put myself there. And I don't know, the whole book just wrote itself in some ways. Really did.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So, and you have another book coming.
I do. I am deep into the sequel. And I can share some things about that are sort of exciting. First of all, for those who read the book, it is a continuation of the love story. And it goes forward and backward in time. It goes back to a very ancient Druid lifetime. Because in the story, anyway, we won't say anymore. But it also goes forward in time as these souls move all the way to the cusp of the Aquarian age, here in the last days, hopefully, of the Kali Yuga. And there seem to be some themes coming out, and one of them really is, how in this world, what we might call the sacred marriage template has really been broken. And that starts by the wholeness within. It starts with that sovereignty within and that melding of the male and female within us so that we are whole people and so that we're willing to do our nonviolent communication. We're willing to heal the wounds that would cause us to react in old patterns. And And I was thinking about it earlier. Caridwen, my character from The Alchemy of Avalon, her soul is the same soul traveling through. But so many of our souls, whether we're men or women, we have been in the past kind of cut off from our wisdom in the burning times, cut off from our wisdom in the persecution times. I mean, what happened to women it is so outrageous, and it's and it shut a lot of us down. I know for myself that speaking truth to power became a very dangerous thing, and I was killed several times for that. And the truth is love, that. But now the voice is opening, the feminine is rising again, and she is being welcomed for the most part. And so this book is carrying this soul. I'm not writing about the persecution times, but the soul has to remember that wisdom from the way past. And so I'm weaving kind of the way past life with the current life. It's very multidimensional. It's a lot of fun to write. And it's also structured on the pattern of the orbit of the planet Venus, which I will show you. I brought it. I have show and tell. Look at this. This is the actual orbit shape of Venus.
Beautiful.
It makes a 5-pointed flower.
Yeah.
It's called the Rosa Bellum. The rose is so meaningful to me. It's the highest frequency oil that exists. It's the rose is also on that sacred geometry of 5, and it opens its petals the way you would draw a 5-pointed
pentagram.
Star.
Okay.
It's not in a linear sequence, and that's exactly the same way. If you follow these loops, they don't go round like that. They cut, they cross, and they jump, and they come back. And the rose also, the frequency is that 1 point. It's phi. It's the golden mean, 1.61831 maybe, but it's this proportion that we are in our harmonic being. It's the resonance of love. It's actually been measured as the resonance of the heart in love is the same frequency as the rose. And the rose has an ancient connection with Venus, with the planet Venus, and the divine feminine. So all this has just been so fascinating to me. So I'm writing this, and it's called Spiral of Love, the new book. And I'm writing it on 5 spirals, because we talk about as we evolve, right? Evolution is a spiral process. It's a path where you come back around, but this time you know a little more. And perhaps it's a flower of a spiral where you jump out and go back and whatnot. So it's kind of exciting. It's just a little thing that gets me all excited. And I've been walking that path for many lifetimes, the way of the rose, the way of love, beauty, truth, and love.
Yeah.
So
beautiful. So, would you like to sing?
Would I like to sing? Okay. Yeah.
Just before you sing, just tell us a little bit about your band.
Okay. I'm going to get my cheat sheet here. I know this song. I've sung it maybe 25 times already this morning, but you know how it is.
Yeah,
I have the words nearby. So the band, it's funny. 12 years ago, when I met my current husband, who really is my beloved soulmate, I had my children with my first husband, had 20 years, and then he died suddenly of this awful cancer. And that's another piece. But we were just kind of being friends, my husband and I, my current husband, Miles. And one day he said, Yeah, I'm a drummer and I'm looking to put together another band. And I had sung all my life, but in the last, 10 years before meeting him, I had been thinking, gosh, it'd be fun to sing in a band. I'd love to do that. So I was so excited. I was like, here's my phone number. If you ever get some musicians together, let me know. Well, he called me 3 hours later, and we we ended up going out two-step dancing and had an amazing evening that we it was yeah, it was beautiful. And that was sort of the beginning. So over these years, we've had various constellations of musicians and music. But in the last 8 years, we have really been working with our dear neighbors, my Sufi friends, Ravi, and his wife, Kathy, she is a carrier in the Urasenki tea ceremony tradition. Her mother is Japanese, her father's American, and she
Wow.
is a teacher of Japanese tea. Actually, they both are. That they met in Kyoto studying that, but so she's keyboards and backup vocals, and he's my guitar player, and my husband drums, and we have this wonderful fellow who my children call Merlin. He has a long white beard.
Okay.
He plays the bass, and his name is David, but he is also known as Critter for some fun
Okay.
reason. We love Critter. And we've been just playing together for this quite a while. We tune to 432 frequency. Um, Pink Floyd tuned to that. What was their album, the famous one?
430 as opposed to 440. Okay.
Yeah, 432.
432.
528 is also a beautiful frequency, but it tends to read as sharp, and it sets people funny a little. But 432 is a beautiful frequency. I don't know if it's really true. Some say that the Nazis, in their strange appropriation of spirituality and their sort of skewed application of it, took that frequency called 440, which is more martial, which is more follow the crowd, which is, and used that and sort of standardized that. I've heard people say that's not the case. Before these, maybe before the 40s or 50s, back in the days of Bach or Mozart, or they tuned to whatever frequency they wanted. It wasn't standardized.
Yeah.
Anyway, we tuned to 432 because we just feel it really has a beautiful, peaceful frequency vibe. And that's the whole purpose in my mind. I'm the singer. I'm out there. I'm radiating what I want to put out in the world.
Okay.
And that's a frequency of love and a frequency of healing. And I will change words to songs we love. There's a song called by Three Dog Night from this dates me right from the 70s, called "Joy to the World."
Okay.
Yeah, probably we know it, but they're very misogynistic verses in there. So I rewrote the whole thing and bringing joy to the world in different ways. So I'm very creative with lyrics when I want to be, but we have a mix. We do country rock, classic rock, Chicago blues. My husband loves blues. When he did his DNA test, Africa lit up. He's 1.4% Black, and he just loves it. It's great. And we do originals and pagan songs. We do one of Dave the Bard's songs. We do Land, Sea, and Sky, because that song it's like comes out like a power ballad with the band. I told Dave last summer that we did it, and he was like, "Where's the recording? I want to hear it," but we haven't recorded it.
So what's the name of your band? Gabriella wants to know.
It's called Green Oaks. Okay. With a caveat, I will tell you where you can hear 3 songs that we recorded in 2018. That's my caveat. We have improved. It's on YouTube under Green Oaks Music, and there will be a picture of sort of like a sunburst with green oak leaves around it. That's how you know it's really us. And we did 3 tunes, got in the studio, and then the pandemic came, and our gigging sort of slowed down. We only did outdoor things, and yeah. But now we've been brushing off we were the rusty oaks there for a little while, but now we're back to being green.
Oh, wonderful. Going back to frequency, Andrew King says, sometimes I tune to 432 solo, but haven't converted the rest of the band yet. And then Karen says, what is frequency? I heard today something about John Lennon's Imagine being a frequency of love. Can't remember what the frequency was. I don't know if you know that.
I don't know what he recorded that at. When you change to the frequency, you're not changing key. Our bass player was a little critter's like, huh? What do we do? And we said, no, just dial up 432 on your tuner and tune normally. And you can't really tell, but it has to do with the vibrational effect of where the strings are tuned. It's slightly, 440 is higher than 432. So it's a tad lower, but it does not sound that way to the ear. It just carries a certain vibe, right? Yeah. Pink Floyd used that frequency.
Okay. So you're in good company. So are you ready to, I know you're singing, we had a comedian called Maureen Potter, and she was very, very funny. She loved to sing Acapulco. So that was her way of putting a cappella. She said, I'll sing Acapulco. So I've always said, would you like to sing Acapulco ever since? So this is very funny. I love malapropisms.
Oh, so. That I do too. My oh gosh. My dad used to do a very funny one, how in the 70s there was a lot of simulated leather, right? We would always call it stimulated leather.
Brilliant.
Oh gosh. Okay. I want to sing. I thought about it when you suggested I sing something. This is a tune, and it's written by 2 people I've never heard of, Emery Gordy and Joe Henry. And it was first released and recorded by Winona Judd, which I'm sure you've heard of. And it was also featured recently in a really good movie, a sweet movie called Wild Rose. It was about a girl, a Glaswegian girl. I think she was from Glasgow, and she always wanted to go to Nashville. And but it's a deep story. It's a healing story. It's very good. And she sang that in that movie. But
it was Jessie Buckley. Was she the actress?
Jessie Buckley. Mm-hmm.
Ah, yes, she's Irish. I saw the film.
Well, it was a good film. Yeah.
She's a great voice. Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah, no, she was good. She did great. So I am a Steiner teacher.
That's okay.
I'm going to see if I can catch a C here, because that will put me somewhere. I can sing this in any key that I would come up with. Just don't want to start it really low. When I reach the place I'm going, I will surely know my way. And I will stop and look around me and give thanks for one more day. Every light begins in darkness. Every flower was once a seed. And with the wind and sun to test us, we are bound to be released. I will flow beyond this valley, and I will open up the gate. And when I reach the place I'm going, I will surely know my way. We have hands to hold our sorrow, and we have tears to heal the pain. And though your eyes ask many questions, on your lips I hear my name. And I was born without a whisper, and I was born beneath the rain. But when I reach the place I'm going, I will surely know my way. I will surely know my way. I will surely know my way.
Beautiful, beautiful. Lots of Gabriella says, I'm holding the beat, and lots of applause. Beautifully soulful. Wonderful.
It's a good song.
That's brilliant. And James Bruce says Imagine was 528 frequency.
Ah, and that is known as the frequency of love. That's what we tried that at first.
Okay.
It was like, ooh, sort of sharp. But that's really cool that he recorded Imagine in that frequency.
Yeah. That's
awesome.
brilliant.
I have a friend who lives in East Sussex. She lives in Alfriston, and she's a piper, the bagpipes. And she got a special set tuned to 528. She goes to places where there were battles on battlefields.
Yeah.
And she plays and heals some of that, releases some of that pain. And yeah.
Well, I use 440, but I'm thinking now maybe I'll do 528. Just see what it's like on the harp.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Owen Vardoon, who was a guest a long time ago. Thank you for sharing your insights, thoughts, and voice. And Gabriella, I think this is about your friend with the pipes. How noble of her. It's beautiful to be able to do things like that. You just go and you play and see what happens, offer it to the land.
You offer it to the land.
Yeah.
In fact, the woman who I follow for years, her gardening protocols with nature, she has done quite a bit of healing on those battlefields down south from the Civil War, and watched the energy that nature held of the pain, watched it release like a big cloud. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this may have some resonance. Lisa says, singing and playing guitar has been soothing for grief. Thank you for singing. I mean, you and I are not strangers to grief. How useful was music and your singing in terms of you managing your grief when your husband died?
Very, very useful. And I was very blessed in that I was teaching at the time. Children were helpful, my students, and singing with them, and singing on my own. He died at home, and we were very blessed. We had a neighbor who came and did the pronouncing, and then we put him on dry ice for 3 days, and we gathered around. And when we actually carried his body, and he wanted to be buried at home, and we can do that in New Mexico, we sang Amazing Grace. And I mean, I think just singing that song with tears running down your face is pretty wild. Luckily, I had my girlfriend who's a professional musician singing with me. But yeah, and music just, it heals. And to me, it's such a uplifting joy thing. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because did he have cancer for long before he passed?
We had a family, a pretty good scene, an 18-year-old who was off to college in the following autumn, a 15-year-old who had just completed his first year of what we call high school, and a 9-year-old who was within 2 weeks of turning 10. And he got diagnosed at the end of March, and he died on the 30th of May, 2 months. So the life that was happening was suddenly like that trick where you pull the tablecloth out and everything's supposed to stay on the table, but not in this case. It crashed down. It was such an intense adjustment. And I knew he and I were complete. I think we had completed our task. We had made this beautiful family, and he did not want to leave because of his children. And actually, this is pretty cool. I'll tell you this story. Do you remember, you might not, Eimear, but when we did Spring Equinox with our Red Willow seed group from Taos, Billy had one of our mutual friends, Julie Holly, and she's a harpist.
Yes.
She played. Well, Julie has been my friend for 40 years.
Yeah.
Brilliant woman. And she also runs sweat lodge ceremonies. And she and a woman named Raven were preparing for a lodge. Excuse me. It was to be held, I think, either the 31st of May. I think the 31st of May. And he died on the 30th. So Raven, as they're, I don't know, creating the fire or maybe waiting for a minute, she said, I had the weirdest, odd experience last night. It wasn't a dream. It was a vision. And a man came to me who I'd never seen. And he said, I do need to go, but I don't want to leave my children, and I don't know what to do. And Raven said to him, well, if you need to go, you have to trust. They will be all right. And you can always be with them from the other world. So I'll give you permission. He was sort of needing some permission. And Julie had just heard that my husband, Rick, had died. She went and got a poster that the community had made as a fundraiser for him with a picture of him and me on it. And she said, do you recognize this person? She's like, that is the man. And so I don't know, Raven. I met her years later, which was really cool. But she gave him the permission to leave his kids. And after he died, he wouldn't let me come and be with him. He pushed me back in the bed. I kept trying to, It's like, nope, I got to do it now. And you can't bother me. You'll pull me. And we had a dear friend, who was doing metta meditation practice in the room with him. And the second time he pushed me back, I just had to wait. And then he tapped on the door and said, I think he's gone. And so after we crossed his arms and closed his eyes and just did that loving ministration, I sat in the room with him. And his spirit was like the strongest wind in the world. And we had a long conversation. And I remember saying, I don't even care if you don't have a body. You better help me parent these children. And he really has. My daughter has a very strong connection with him.
She was the youngest.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Howard, luckily we had 18 months. So lots of time. And we had done a lot of work anyway, but we just had extra time just to add layers and layers. We were all with him. But funny, when we thought we were waiting for a diagnosis, he had 2 cancers. Once was bladder cancer, which was healed, and then by chance discovered a tumor on his pancreas. Otherwise, that wouldn't have manifested until a year later. And then it would have been a quick thing because pancreatic cancer goes so quickly. But so we had this time, but I said, if it's positive, if it's malignant, I want to be with you when you pass. I want to be with you. I promise you, I'll never hold you back.
Yeah.
But I said, I have to be there. And he said, sure. And we didn't. We just said, it's time to go when he was ready. He knew that when the pain would get too much, that he was going to go, and we knew something had ruptured. I said, "Okay, you go," because he'd been writing a paper or editing a paper that morning on rock carvings in Scotland. He published two books in his last 6 weeks. So he was very well psychologically and
Well done.
emotionally. Just physically, he wasn't. But and he got to write 2 letters to the 2 children.
Oh.
Now he had adult children as well, but Gabriella says, "I don't let go. I bargain. I negotiate." No, once we had a diagnosis, no bargaining, just accepting. And the thing was, we're going to live as fully as we can for as long as we can. And that sustained us. So there was no fighting. I mean, not fighting with each other, no fighting about it. It was grateful for what we had. I wish we'd had longer, but we did have a lot. So that was,
yeah.
And then the kids were, because they were home educated. So they had their father. He had retired 8 years before he passed. He was a bit older than me. And so they had a full-time dad. Most kids don't have that.
Wow.
So,
what a blessing, really. Yeah.
And we had a druid funeral in our grove in the garden, and he's buried next door in the graveyard beside his first wife.
Fantastic.
But I used to play the harp to him at night, just to soothe him,
I bet that was like for him, just like an angel bearing him up and into soothing peace. Yeah.
And then when he passed, our friend Koch, who's another member of the order, and my sister, she sang, and then we laid him out. And I mean, as soon as he passed, he went. It was like the easiest of passing.
He's ready. Yeah.
But it's interesting being a lone parent of adolescents. That's hard work.
It's hard work. And my middle son, who was 15, just fell right apart. It was a challenging time. And my older son, I didn't watch him fall apart, but he probably did. I mean, he was there navigating freshman year in college. You know what? But he's 37 now, and my other one is 34, and my daughter's almost 29 in June, and we've thrived. We've done it.
Same here. My daughter's 21, and my son is will be 25 in July. And yes, they've come through it.
I mean, I always felt the gift for my children, that there were few gifts in that, really. But the one gift that was there that they could take if they chose would be to know that life is multidimensional, and to know that they could connect with him instantly in the other world, and that would expand their understanding of life as well. And I knew for me that in some sense we were complete, and I had another beloved. I didn't know when or how, and it has come to pass, but so that's different. But boy, for the kids, yeah. So I think they've all by now had that gift, and I'm so glad. Yeah.
And it's beautiful to be able to recognize it and receive it and navigate it, because none of us passes through life without any adversity, and to be able to accept it, navigate it with grace. Like people said, "Oh, he had a long battle with cancer," and Howard says, "I'm not battling cancer." He said, "I'm weaving my way with it."
Oh, that's brilliant.
Not through it, with it. And he said, "I'm walking on a leg of pessimism and a leg of optimism, and one will mediate the other." So when it was like, okay, we're going to live as fully as we can for as long as we can. And then we got to the beginning of the end, when they said, you've got secondaries and nothing more. And he said, well, my leg of pessimism has prepared me for this. And then the next thing is he's coming home to die. And he said, I have 2 or 3 weeks, but he had 6. And then he said, this is wonderful. So I was able to look. I used to be a nurse. My sister came home from Sudan to help as well. And we managed, and the kids were there, and we were, and he could die at home. And that's what he wanted and what I wanted. That he didn't have to die in hospital. And we had a home care team who were brilliant. They were just incredible.
Yeah. No, that's I think that's part of our Druid path in a way. Is just being we're coming and going all the time. And we know that life is a circle, and we know that it's multidimensional. And we know too that there's grief. None of us escape the grief, but it's just that's the way I've always really lived since I came to Taos. It's very close to the earth and very in that grounded way. Had my children at home, all those things.
Those
Yeah.
lucky things. You mean they were born at home?
Yes.
You see, that's my son was a failed home birth, but he almost was born at home. He experienced labor, but my daughter was born here, just behind me.
Yeah.
And
The best.
we're very, very lucky to be able to do that. Really, really lucky.
Very
So,
lucky. And I mean, that's why I wrote, there's a midwife who I love very dearly in my book named Branwen.
yes.
Yeah.
No, it's wonderful to be able to experience those. But so and just talking about grief being a price you pay for love that you've had.
Absolutely. Because how high can you go in your joy, and your love is how deep you can go in your grief. And then you're alive. Eimear, I just noticed my camera is smudged. So hold on.
Oh my God. Yes, it's much brighter.
I was looking at the picture going, okay.
Well, now I can see you. Okay.
Yeah. It's a fingerprint.
Yes. So, you were actually, yes, because I was asking you about your poetry as a bard, and you said you have a song that you've written, but you're not going to sing it, but you read it as a poem. Could you do that for us?
I would love to. And the reason I don't want to sing it is that we kind of collaboratively worked on it with the band, and it's got harmonies, and it's got, stuff. So many of us who are, I don't know, the term's a little overused, but light workers, we see the sorrow of the world, and sometimes it's almost too much to bear because we can't fix it all. And so to understand that what we can do is be a frequency holder in our own sphere and trust that that makes a difference is important. And Saint Mother Teresa has a wonderful quotation that I base this song on. And she said, if you cannot do great things, do small things with great love.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just love that. So it's my Mother Teresa country song.
Oh, cool.
And it's a simple poem. It's certainly just a song poem. It's not a complicated poem. It says, I cannot do every great thing this aching world needs, but I can do small things with great love. I cannot feed every starving soul, stop every war, but I can do small things with great love. And though they may not seem profound, small things abound, and we can do them all with love. I can't heal all addiction, all violence and pain, but I can do small things with great love. I cannot tend all imbalance on our gracious planet Earth, but I will do small things with great love. And though they may not seem profound, small things abound, and we can do them all with love. I'll sing to you in front of me a song filled with love. Give a hug, a smile, choose love every time. And I can feed the heart inside of me, fill the well within. Then I can do all things with great love. And though they may not seem profound, small things abound, and we can do them all with love. So
Beautiful, beautiful. Gabriella says, feeling the love frequency in the song.
Oh, thank you, Gabriella. Appreciate that.
It's beautiful, beautiful. So what's the thing that you're most proud of, your greatest achievement?
Well, I suppose one might say that I have unflinchingly been committed to evolving and growing my entire life, and I have had some hard knocks, um, tough stuff, like we all have.
Mhm.
And I haven't allowed it to make me, well, for a while I was a victim, but I do not choose to let it make me be a victim. And I choose to identify with that great power of love that my soul is. And I guess that, I mean, that pride, I'm not really proud of that. I just feel like that's my mission, and I'm grateful for my beautiful children too,
Mm.
and that I have taken my life that's collapsed into ash more than once and always been able to sort of hold the frequency that I wish to have. In other words, you can't create. What am I trying to say? One would create from a frequency of victimhood or resentment, and then one would create more of the same. And so to try my best to love myself through things, to hold that frequency of love, because then my creations will come from that higher place. And I feel that I have done that in my life over and over again. So that's what I'd say.
Wonderful. What do you have any regrets?
Nope.
That's the long answer. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't want to go there. Don't want to. Don't. I wouldn't entertain that. Let me give it a minute. Let me scan. No.
Okay. Gabriella says, I hear you saying you are a phoenix. Well, I think so. Would you talk about, dropped into the ashes, become ashes so many times, and then rising up? Okay. So what is the most reckless thing you've ever done?
Oh, the first thing that comes to mind, I was quite young. I was in my 20s. I rode on the back of a motorcycle all the way down Highway 1 in California, which is the coast highway, with no helmet.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of a physically reckless thing. I've fallen in love sometimes at the wrong. Well, but you can't say it's wrong because you always learn a lesson. But I have opened my heart recklessly at times.
Interesting about opening your heart. Unless you take a risk, you don't receive it, but you don't know at the time.
Yep.
And I have been on a motorbike with no helmet. I was in Tanzania. We were building our house there, and myself and Shaban, my healer friend, we were on the bus. So my daughter was a year old. I left her with Howard and Ruan back at the place. And so we went up this 4-hour bus journey up the mountain, arrived after the last bus left. So this is a rural area up Kilimanjaro, and we had to buy some wood. So we bought some wood for the house, booked it, said it was going to be delivered. Now, how are we going to get down?
Yeah.
So their taxi service are peaky motorbikes, kind of Honda 50s or 175s. So we managed to find two. So no helmet, no nothing, on dirt roads. And this guy is going up and down, and there's elderly people on the roads. There's no footpaths or anything. And I'm going, do I hold this guy? Do I wrap myself around him? And I had to, because, I was filling up with milk.
On top of it all.
If I have a child who's going to be screaming,
oh my gosh,
I'm going to walk. If I have to walk, I am getting there. So I was so determined on this bike that we had to get home. And then he was going in and out, and they're, doing a slalom around people. And I'm going, I can't believe this. And then I'd heard a colleague of mine he's a biker and always wore, these big protective suit things like baby grows.
Yeah.
And he told me that he'd gone out to the shop to get something and decided not to wear it. He wouldn't need it, and he fell, and he just scraped all of himself. Where here I am, reckless, no helmet, no nothing.
Oh my God.
T-shirt. Nothing to protect me if I fell.
Oh my
God. And then the two of us were covered in red, killing. So Shaban is Tanzanian, so he's covered. He's, a black face and all red on his hair, and then me, pale, red as well. And we managed to get the last bus ever in Tanzania to get home. But I think Gabriella, surely it was a druidic motorbike it was guided by. Well, I tell you, there was loads of angels, and I don't know who else was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
The fact that we found them, but a crazy thing to do. But you have a baby who's needing your care. You will do anything.
You will do what you must.
So it's.
Gosh.
I haven't thought I've done other reckless things. I married Howard very quickly, after 7 months, not long separated, and he wasn't long widowed. Best thing I ever did.
So there you go. Sometimes you're getting the guidance and you do it.
That's right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is his name? Yes, so many taxi rides in just straw hat, sundress, Thailand, Cambodia, managed to survive. Well done. Well done. Lisa says, thank you from me as well. This is about our conversation, working on being strong final parent too, meant also small things. I appreciate your discussion of these realities. There was another comment that somebody, I'll just look it up, that somebody made about, this is from Pauline, appreciate your open discussion tonight through life, love and grief, which gives us a great reason to live our best lives. And a beautiful poem. And it's about living your best life, whatever you, whatever hand of cards you get, live it the best for as long as you can, and seize every moment. And you don't know when it's going to be taken.
You don't. And being close with death. I mean, I've walked my father, my great aunt, my late husband through the portal, and you never know. So, like you said, seize it. And I really think we have a choice for how our hand of cards is going to be played. And I think that really does have to do with our moment-to-moment choices for, to put it simply, for love or fear, yeah.
That's
and
right.
love is often the braver choice, but it pays off.
Yes, it is. So I don't know if you've referred to this, your biggest challenge that you've overcome.
I mean, definitely having my family crash into smithereens and having to parent my boys who were self-medicating, going on, my particular one was huge. I had a lot of angelic help. I had help. And also just, I mean, I experienced, I was a recipient of a stranger rape when I was a teenager. And so coming out of that victim place, coming out of a lot of, it sort of put my early understanding of relationship and sexuality into a very unhealthy place. And I've spent, 50 years or 50, I don't know, I'm 62. So I spent many, many years working on it. And now I don't even identify with that person or that victim, but that certainly has been a challenge. And I have to say that part of my mission feels like that it really is about bringing that sovereignty within, having that wholeness, and also having a healthy relationship and a healthy marriage, and sort of demonstrating what does the sacred marriage template feel like or look like, at least in my life. And so I've come a long, long, long way and worked through so much. And in fact, my first book was about a date rape. And it wasn't time for that back in the 90s. And now with the Me Too movement, maybe it's time to put that one out again. But yeah, I would say that's probably huge. And yet, like I said, I've had myself shamanically restructured by my amazing healer. I don't even know what she did, but I'm not the same person. It's profound. But nonetheless, yeah, probably the biggest.
Wow. I'm well done. I've been listening to, and I bought books from both my kids, Naomi Wolf's book, Vagina.
Okay.
Highly recommended.
Okay.
For everybody, men and women. So I bought one for my son and for my daughter. I'm listening to it on audio, and then I bought my own hard copy, and she talks about the brain vagina connection.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't have it. I'll try and remember that. Naomi Wolf.
I'm going to put it in. Okay.
We can remember the title, no problem.
Um, yeah. So, when she talks about rape and sexual assault, that it's not just a physical attack, it's also an assault on the brain, and how damaging it can be, and how, rape is used in war, and
Right,
it is
right.
to disempower women.
Absolutely. It has been used through history.
And it's accepted. Oh, yeah, but that's war. I hear people say this. It's like, what?
No. New paradigm time. Sorry, no
Anyway,
more
the book
dominator.
is just amazing. It's
Wow.
like she's done a lot of research into it, and yeah,
Wow.
challenges lots of stuff that new stuff that feminist notions of women and sexuality. Brilliant. Highly recommended to
Oh,
everybody.
fantastic. And I do recommend Sacred Pleasure too, along
I've
those
I've that
lines.
written down.
Yeah.
So brilliant. So Naomi, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. Jenna, you're such a shining guiding light. I
Huh.
find myself trying to rebuild myself over and over again, but I think I'm working slowly through. It all takes its own time. And that's a really, really important one.
Yeah.
Tracy says, I'm trying to, so Gabriella says, one of my great grandmothers, she had 3 daughters and her husband died in a war. She was so upset with divinity for this, not with the husbands, but with God. Yeah. And she said, yet she was such a proud woman who did amazing on her own. It's amazing how you can work incredibly, discover powers that you didn't know you had. And so often the best lessons are the hardest ones, which is a pity. But and Tracy says, why I'm working to stop provisional living. The only thing that's certain is now. Absolutely. Don't be waiting. Absolutely. So I'm just, yeah. So we're coming to the end, close to the end of our time. A concern that you have for the modern world, or about the modern world, not for it, about.
Well, I'm sure along with the rest of you, many concerns come to mind. I'm such an optimist, and I do not bury myself in news because I don't really feel that that's productive. It's good to know what's going on, but it's good to hold a frequency that could transcend and heal that. I guess the concern is that, well, one that comes to mind is that the rampant drug addiction and violence, particularly in this country, as people, I mean, I feel like when you're caught in addiction, you're caught in such a trap. And things like methamphetamine addiction, you are a crazy person.
Yeah.
And if you have a gun in your hand, you're a real crazy person. And so, and where is the root of that? And the root of that, I mean, I feel it really comes back again to the heart of the family and children who are not raised with maybe a primary caregiver, maybe with the bonding they needed, with the security within themselves. And so, and then that sort of comes back to that sacred marriage template. That's that place where we can raise the young ones in a secure way with food and a home and love, and that the parents aren't so stressed out. So, I mean, that's what I would say right now. Yeah. Yeah.
And what gives you hope then?
All the people I know, there's so many, listen, there are so many good things going on in this world. And there are so many families, and I look at my grandchildren and I see how beautifully they're being raised and loved. And I know many other children are. The Steiner schools give me hope too. The Montessori schools, all of the plethora of ways that people who love their children care about it, and people who love other people are helping to pull people out of addiction and I have a lot of hope for the world. And another thing that gives me hope is slightly esoteric, but it's actually not. Excuse me. It's astronomy.
Go on.
Right now, this Earth has come into something called the galactic current sheet, also known as the photon belt. And our magnetic shields are dropping on the planet, which means that this divine light, this pure cosmic light, light carries information, is hitting the earth, is bombarding the earth. It's part of what these ages, these shifts of the ages, is propelled by. And I have so much faith in this light. Now, the trick is we're all going to evolve eventually, and we may not see the world that we dream of in our lifetimes, but it's very possible our children or grandchildren may. And my astrologers who I listen to, I mean, things are moving fast. We may not recognize this world, hopefully, in another 10 years, 5 years. So going through this light, it's having different effects. Those of us who've done our trauma work, those of us who aren't, kind of caught in a lot of stuff we can't look at, if we're clear, we're getting filled with light. But it's squeezing everyone else. So we have to sort of be there to hold those who are falling apart. And but it also, we're all going to evolve. And I trust that. I do. So that's what I have hope for.
Wonderful. Gabriella, has a question. Is that astrologer Pam Gregory?
Yes, she is one of my favorites. Oh, and speaking of which, I just got so excited by her conversation with Julia Balaz, who is a wonderful young woman who's a galactic astrologer. We are galactic citizens. We are star beings. And it makes sense to me that not only would these dense planets in our little solar system affect us, but it's the galactic center that the sun, we revolve around the sun goes around the galactic center, and the galactic center is pulled around the super galactic center, and the super galactic center is pulled around the great attractor, and the great attractor is pulled by what Julie calls the Shapley attractor. It looks like Shapely. It just depends on where you're from, probably. And in this galactic astrology, they are realizing the sort of esoteric meanings of where these things might land in one's chart. This is huge stuff. This is huge, but I think we're that big. And anyway, look it up. Pam has an interview with Julia Balaz.
Great.
Very cool. Yeah.
Liz says, that's about a succinct summary of the time we're in that I've ever heard. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Carmen says, thank you, Jenna, for the love and light that shines from your heart. So
thank you.
Lovely comments. So my final question is always my final question for my guest. What is your favorite season, and what is your favorite ceremony to mark the Wheel of the Year?
Oh my goodness. It's actually really hard because I love all 4 seasons so much.
If you had to choose, and you don't have to, but if you had to choose.
Okay, well, I'm an earth goddess. I'm born in September. If I had to choose, I would take that harvest time of equinox, that brilliant time when the brambles are ripe and the apples are ready. I love apples. I had to choose, but I do love it all. And then I will say, lately, just I think because I got married at Beltane, or as I think, am I saying it right? Bieltana. That one's becoming one of my favorites lately.
Yeah. Well, Gabriella is going to be disappointed. She put Midsummer and Samhain. She likes to bet on.
Oh, she likes to bet.
And she's had more success this year.
Sorry, Gabrielle.
Yeah, she said she wanted to say Bialtana, but she didn't.
That's funny. And
Anyway,
and then my second runner-up is not going to be Samhain, although I love that too. It's winter solstice. There's something about that one
okay.
that just
Yeah, that's wonderful. So Christopher says, thank you for your grace, insight, and wisdom. This has been a treat and a delight.
Oh, Christopher, thank you. Thank you so
Wonderful.
much. I'm so pleased to connect, even if it's when I can't see you. I
Well,
appreciate it.
and Gabriella says, this is what happens when you ignore your intuition. I don't know what you were doing. Listen to your intuition, Gabriella. Just
Yep.
do it more.
Yep.
Wait a second. Thank you. This is from Julia. Thank you for such an interesting and fun evening. Thank you both from Lisa. So it's been a really just lovely having this chat, and
Yes.
we've kind of been in grief, and then we have soared into the heavens and to
Yeah.
the greater,
Garden.
greater. I can't the Shapley, whatever it is,
Happily a tractor, I think
the
it's called.
Shapley attractor, and I don't know. Did we go beyond that? I'm not so
No, but
sure.
I'm sure we could. No, it's fascinating. Look it up. It's really cool.
Oh, it's William. So Karen says, thank you so much for an inspiring fireside chat tonight. Very positive and so appreciated. So we've done grief, we've done everything, and adolescence and all sorts of stuff. So
Yeah.
so Carol says, thank you, Eimear, for your wise and caring interview, and Jenna for your shine and optimism. And then David Jones, real cool topics and sharing. Thank you both. Yeah. So
Great.
again, you see, I didn't know where we were going into astrology. I didn't know how far we were going to ascend. And it's really
Well, we're beings of the cosmos and the earth is in the cosmos.
that's right.
Would it be all right if I say I just published a new website?
Oh yes, please do that. Yes.
Yeah, you can find out more at Jenna Paulden, Paulden, just like the boy's name, Paulden.com. And my book is on there, and I'm excited about it. It's really beautiful, and I took all the pictures myself, except for the ones of me as a kid. But yeah,
Okay.
it's
So I'm
fun.
just putting it in here in the chat. So jennapolden.com. Okay.
Mhm. And yeah, The Alchemy of Avalon is the book, and look for The Spiral of Love. It's we'll see. Maybe by 2024, the ending of 2024.
Right. I
Yeah.
look forward to reading because I enjoyed the alchemy of Avalon.
Oh, fantastic.
And Amy says, so much to take from you. Fantastic conversation. Merry gardening and love to you, Jenna. And then
Love
Gabrielle,
that.
Jenna truly exudes love. Thank you for this open heart conversation. That's Florbella. So I'll allow you say goodnight to everybody, and then I'll send you back to the green room, and then we can just go over the comments again. So I'll let you
Lovely.
say goodnight to everybody there.
Thank you all so much. You really touched my heart. I so appreciate that. Was my prayer. Help me be authentic and carry that frequency of love so that we can spread it around some more. So I thank you all very much.
Gabrielle comes in with a question. How does Jenna stay full of love around people who are not like that?
Well, there is such a thing as a bubble of protection. I have this cool thing that my angel has given me. It's called a membrane of love. You can have one too. It allows love in and it allows love out, but everything else bounces off. So, and I do find that if the love goes out, often love will come back, sometimes not. And then, the art of disengagement works well too.
Yeah.
But yeah, put that membrane of love up, because when I perform, I have to have that, because people make odd attachments or they'll do weird things, it's just part of life, but it doesn't mean that you have to be mean or anything. You just hold that frequency and know that that's the membrane.
Great. Well, thank you for the answer. So I let you say good night one more time, sorry, it's good afternoon for you, isn't it? Yes.
Yes, but that's fine. Good afternoon, good night. So many blessings to you all. I just had so much fun. Lovely to chat with you too, Eimear, and I'm just really honored that you all
Not
are
at all. It
here.
was a pleasure.
Much love.
Okay. David, you saw your first hoverfly. Thank you, Howard. Thank you for remembering, David. That's really sweet of you. So listen, thank you so much. And Tracy says, thank you. I need to get in touch with my love bubble sometimes. Yes. It's glad that you were all here. And of course, lots of comments that I couldn't get to read. There were so many. Joyful as always to have you and to be having a chat with these wonderful guests that I'm so lucky to have, that we have in the order. So I wish you good night, good afternoon, good morning, or again, if this is a recording that you're listening to. I look forward to seeing you next week for another Fireside Chat. In the meantime, be well, enjoy the explosion in the landscape that comes with this time of Bealtaine. And Bealtaine in Ireland lasts the whole month of May. So be well and enjoy. Let's hope for wherever you are that you're getting warmer weather. Until we meet again, Iwa agus slán go fóill.